Yes, we are.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City of Winona Plan Commission, Monday, April 12th, 2021. Will you please call the roll?
Chair Moore,
Here.
Alder Goforth,
Present.
Mr. Homburg,
Here.
Ms. Fallett,
Here.
Mr. Stein,
Here.
Mr. Holmquist.
Here.
Ms. Fox is excused.
Thank you. And Josh Peterson, unfortunately, has had to resign from the committee. So we have an opening on the committee, which we expect to fill shortly. We had quite a few applications. So we will miss Josh, but with that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes for March 22. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 22nd?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes? Chris?
On page 2, it's insinuated elsewhere, but I think it was an important point. So we should just have a sentence that mentions that where the applicant had shown ground floor residential, the consensus was that it should all be commercial or work-live arrangements on the ground floor. If you remember the piece right up by Broadway on the plans we had showed residential.
Yeah.
And I know you insinuated one spot, Doug, but I think it bears just flat out saying.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. We have some appearances this evening. If you are here for a public hearing, if you're here specifically to, for public hearing, you can wait until that public hearing happens to speak during that public hearing. If you are here for some other reason, something that's not on the agenda as a public hearing, you are welcome to appear now. And Doug, I'm assuming that the individual who you informed me of, Travis, earlier, somebody who would like to speak during the appearance section?
I believe that all the requests that we had were related to agenda items.
Related to public hearings on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then unless there's anyone here that is here to speak again on something that's not on the agenda for public hearing, we'll move past appearances to the next agenda item. Okay, terrific, thank you. We'll move to number 5, unfinished business. 5A, public hearing on the request by Restaurant Depot, represented by ADA Architects, Inc., for approval of a zoning permit for a new use and construction at 6950 Gisholt Drive, case number 2-007-2021. Who will start the presentation off this evening for the public hearing?
My name's Heather Mize. I'm here with ADA Architects.
Thank you. Welcome, Heather.
So, thank you. So following up, and just a reminder for the record, Restaurant Depot is looking to put a store concept called RD Express into this location. It's a wholesale, Restaurant Depot is a wholesale company. This location will be open to the public, but they're expecting the majority of their customers to be members of the restaurant industry, local mom and pop businesses or nonprofits that would come to the store, purchase food, equipment, supplies, dry and perishable type products, pay for them on site, cash and carry, and then use them at their local restaurants. So we find it's a use that is often in support of little small businesses because the chains have an account with a competitor, but the local companies really like this flexibility that Restaurant Depot gives them. So we're proposing this conversion of what's now an industrial facility into a wholesale, slightly retail use. The traffic and customer counts will be much lower than what we have in a grocery store. And along with that, we are proposing some site plan updates to kind of freshen up the exterior of the building. And Doug, I don't know if you want to put those plans up and we go through them, or how you want to rehash what we've done since the last presentation.
Sure, I can share the plans.
Okay. Great, thank you. So site plan wise, there were not any changes to the building itself. We're showing the existing building with, again, a small, less than 500 square foot addition in the back for an additional recessed truck dock and a enclosed trash compactor, and some minor equipment replacements for residential scale air conditioner units on the ground. Some of those will be removed. Some of them will be replaced with similar equipment. And then we've also taken the feedback from last time. We've widened some of the parking spaces up front. So we had 9 by 18 stalls. We're showing them restriped so that some of those spaces are larger. They're 10 feet wide, which is more typical for what Restaurant Depot would do on a new build. So that worked well for us. Because of that, I think we lost a little bit of parking up front. So we showed a few more employee parking spaces in the rear. And again, Doug mentioned in the notes, the staff notes, that that's behind the fence. So that will be used for employees. And probably there will be other employee needs out front. So that certainly won't take away from what our customers might need. And then that is really it as far as layout goes. We had some landscaping feedback, and that's covered on another sheet. So landscaping, we had a landscaper come out and evaluate all the plant materials, identify the species and caliper of all of that material, and then determine which plantings would need to be removed because they're just in bad shape, or some of them are completely dead. And then showed some new foundation plantings between the sidewalk and the building, as well as replacement of several of those trees that would need to be removed. So all in all, we're showing removal of 3 trees and replacement of those 3 deciduous trees, plus 1 evergreen that was added, along with the new foundation planting. And based on that, the plant count points do get us to what the requirement would be for a commercial building. I know Doug had mentioned that sometimes there's the little leniency on that when it's an industrial building, that they wouldn't need to be as heavily landscaped, but we were very close to that point count anyway. So we were able to provide enough landscaping to meet that requirement. And then Doug, maybe if you can back up one, there was some feedback on the elevation. We had talked about several different options for the windows. And last time the commission suggested, and we agree, that it made most sense to put film over those windows rather than having them show as block. So that's what we're showing here. And we discussed that it would be similar to what's going on at Walmart down the street, where they would appear to be windows, but they would just have kind of a blank look as though there were shades drawn or something like that. And I think that was the only elevation change that we had. There were some signage changes, but I believe those are covered as a separate agenda item. So maybe we hold those until that item comes up.
They are.
And if I recall, there were just a few other comments that we had to clarify and correct, having to do with the number of deliveries per day, because there was a conflict between what Restaurant Depot operations was stating at the last meeting and what was in our letter. So we've updated that. I think it might be at the end of the first page. So delivery trucks with city trailers, meaning not the big 53-foot highway type trailers, the smaller local delivery trailers, and approximately 4 deliveries per day. And again, this is one of the first for that concept. So that's our best guess, but I think Tricia feels like that's fairly accurate as a starting point for
I feel
approximately
confident that that's a good
there'll be.
estimate for a starting point, yes.
And I believe that it covers everything that we addressed with feedback from the last meeting.
Terrific, Heather, thank you. Is there anyone else here from Restaurant Depot to present, Heather, besides you, or were you doing the primary presentation of the public hearing this evening?
I was primary. I don't know. Tricia's the COO for Midwest. I don't know if you'd like to add anything, Tricia.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add from a presentation standpoint other than just to say that, I mean, we appreciate the feedback and the conversation from last time. And, you know, we've tried to take that feedback and incorporate it. And, you know, if there's anything else, you know, please feel free and to have more discussion.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here this evening that wanted to speak during the public hearing portion? Any public members or anyone else from the community that wanted to speak about this particular proposal? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and go to 5B, consideration of action on the request by Restaurant Depot, represented by ADA Architects, Inc. for approval of a zoning permit for new use and construction at 6950 Gisholt Drive, case number 2-007-2021. Doug, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. So just run through the staff report briefly. Quite a few of the points have already been mentioned, but as discussed, this came through for a pre-hearing at the March 22nd meeting. A lot of the items have been addressed that were, I think all the items that were discussed have been addressed in some manner. The parking, the stalls have been widened, as well as the greater differentiation there between the staff parking and the customer parking. The lighting, there has been a photometric plan that was submitted to the city as part of this application. There are a couple spots in the back of the building, sort of towards the loading dock, where there may be some issue with light trespass over 3-foot candles. So really, it's to the commission for a discussion of you know, the benefits of lighting that dock and sort of the higher intensity lighting versus the possibility of some trespass there. At both points, it was behind sort of at the back of the building with more of the loading sort of practice that was taking place. Also, the landscaping, the number of points appears to have been met for the industrial use type. A lot of that was from existing plantings, but as mentioned, you know, the landscaping has been evaluated. So I think 3 of the 4 new trees of 2-inch caliper would be replacing existing, that would of course be much healthier. In terms of landscaping, the front of the building and sort of the perimeter looks to be well landscaped. There may be just a little bit of discussion about I think it's the eastern boundary, which still appears a little light on landscaping, but that's just a discussion point. This was shared with the city's consulting engineer for his review, and that's included. His review letter is included as attachment 1. Very little in terms of comment. The main thing here being about the potential resurfacing of the parking lot, you know, which may trigger additional review and additional process, but not deemed likely, as well as just one point here that erosion control measures need to be shown on the plans as well. So with that, there were a couple comments from city staff, most notably from the fire chief about the addition of a Knox box, as well as just looking into the fire alarm system as well. So with that, staff recommendation is approval with the conditions as stated in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. Chris, would you like to start us off?
Hey, you can hear me?
And we can.
All right, thank you. Couple comments. I guess first I'd like to talk about electrical a little bit. Your electric plan is excruciatingly difficult to read for what we were given. It appears that you have non-cutoff fixtures on some of these, or just basically like spotlights on the building. Is that correct?
I will try to pull up the submittal here because I think we submitted cut sheets for them.
You did,
But I believe the engineer was planning to put some wall packs around there.
That's what I'm getting at. In those wall packs, we require the full cutoff fixtures, and it looks like you have just the wide open ones. That's probably where Doug's talking about some of the light being real bright. It's hard to tell. The sheet we have doesn't really show where everything's at very well. It's incredibly tiny. The 3 B-type fixtures, those appear to be the non-cutoff, if I'm right. And then the 19 other ones, I assume some of them are on poles and some are on the side of the building. And is that this cut sheet that we got? So it would be, this is so much easier. So it would be that fixture right there. Would that be accurate?
Yes, right. So those would be the pole mounted fixtures.
Okay.
And I think that type B was just on the 3 sides of kind of that separate building. Those had the different symbol on them. It's kind of a wood pole barn building that sits on the southwest side.
Yeah,
I believe that's the only place that the type B fixtures were used.
Okay, we would need to switch those to the cutoff type. And the light trespass that you're talking about, Doug, I think it's a little deceiving because, again, I guess I do mean to pick on the electric plan a little bit. The electric plan showing the pavements, what you're reading are pavement numbers, but if you look at the site plan, their property goes way beyond that. Now, we weren't given information there, but my guess is as you get further and further out, those values will go way down. So as long as they're the fixture that I put up on the screen and those are the ones we're worried about, it shouldn't be an issue. The other non-cutoff ones, again, we would want to make sure they're cutoff fixtures. Landscaping, we talked a little bit about it last time. You have, I don't want to call it a hedge, but plantings where the cars face the road, and some of those are missing, especially towards that north end. That would be almost going north on that corner of the parking lot. And those, we had asked to have that filled in. That a lot of that keeps those headlights from shining on other cars that are going by. And then we talked a little bit about the, I don't know, things at such an angle. I'd say the northeast side, that northeast driveway where there's, and Doug mentioned there's virtually no landscaping, if we could do a little something there. So I'd be interested in hearing comments from other commissioners if they think that's worthwhile. We have comments from you that you're going to replace a couple of the AC units, and one of them you'll replace with a small generator, but we've not seen anything. So I would suggest a condition would be that anywhere these are replaced, if the replacements are substantially bigger, then we may require screening. Right now, they're fairly innocuous. They're a small, almost residential type unit. But if, for example, you put in a generator that's 5 by 8 by 6 foot tall, that's something that would need to be screened. And we haven't seen what you're proposing, so it's hard to comment on it. But I suspect, right. I believe that would be a condition that if the replacement equipment is substantially larger than what's there, then you'd have to come back. We'd have to talk about whether or not it needs to be screened. Landscaping. I think that's it for me. I really like putting a bunch of plantings by the foundation. I think that's a good call because it really pops the front of your building. It makes it look more like you want people to come there. It makes it look a little more retail. So I was glad to see all that. Yes, one more thing, the erosion control. I'm not sure Darren quite understood that existing foundation is in place, because from his recommendations, it sounded like he's worried about erosion out of that. And you're not going to be doing any digging for that. The only real excavating you're going to be doing is taking the parking lot surface off possibly some spot undercut. So what I would suggest for that, he's talking about an erosion control plan. I would suggest that you have something, an in-case plan. When you have the asphalt strip and you're working on the gravel, when you're working on potentially any undercutting, if you get caught in a rain or something, that would be the time that something would be an issue, because you're right next to a wetlands. It goes down that ditch into the pond and right out. So I would suggest that plan would be just something that maybe you have a pallet of silt sock there in case you need it, in case you have that parking lot ripped up and you get caught in a rainstorm. I'm not suggesting you need to put it up right away, but you need to have that or silt fence or something there that if you get caught where you don't have the asphalt back on, you would get a heavy rain, we wouldn't want to see that washing out towards that wetlands. So I think from looking at that's more of a concern than his comment on your foundation, because you're not planning on doing anything there except put a structure on top of that existing foundation, correct?
Right, we'll need to look at what the retaining wall looks like, because there were some pieces that had spalled off, so we may end up replacing that, but adding a third wall, but it should be some fairly insignificant excavation, but what you said makes sense.
Yeah, and if you do replace that retaining wall, you're basically going to have a hole in the ground, so it's going to be hard to have much erosion out of that. I don't think that's as big of an issue if you get caught in a big rain event or something with that asphalt stripped off, just to make sure we don't have a lot of washing on that. And that is all my comments. Oh, one more. No, that's signage. I have signage comments. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we've had a few big rainage events here in Winona, in case you're not aware of that. So, so we speak from experience. Unfortunately, especially the last 2 or 3 years, and we know, and Chris certainly knows how much it can cause havoc on construction. So, appreciate that. Corinne?
Thank you.
I guess I was wondering about the parking, and I'm feeling a little bit confused, I guess, but the last time at the pre-hearing conference, you were talking about doing some work to have the roof runoff drain down through the parking lot. Is that something that you're still thinking about doing?
Yes, we're still looking to take the downspouts that come off the northeast wall basically and head towards that wetland area.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they just kind of spill out on grade or actually a little bit underneath the sidewalk. So we're looking to capture those and put them underground, just so that there's not that sheet flow across the sidewalk.
Okay, and that's different than what Chris was just talking about. Chris, were you talking about the loading dock, where the loading dock is going in?
Yeah, I wasn't mentioning the downspouts at all. Darren's comment was he was worried about some runoff during construction from the loading dock area. So it was a different item.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any other, besides striping, is there anything else that you plan to do with the parking lot? There was some areas that do look like they're crumbled up. Is there going to be some repair work?
No, it'll be repaved.
Okay. All right. I probably said that somewhere and I just missed it, but I agree with Chris that having some additional landscaping, I know that you're at the minimum for this, this district, but the landscaping is a little bit rough out there. So there's a lot of plants there. And did the landscaper that you had to come out and do the evaluation, did they talk about the health of some of those other plants that are out there? Maybe to revive them a little bit.
Yeah, they looked at, they did evaluate what was out there. I know there's some lower evergreens. I think they might be juniper near at the corners of the building that are in rough shape. So I think as part of this, they would trim up anything that's sort of overgrown and needs a little bit more, finishing to it.
Okay. And I think that will just add to the attractiveness of your building if you think about freshening up some of that, and Rob can probably speak to that a little bit more. But other than that, I didn't have anything in addition to that or what Chris had said.
Great, thank you, Corinne.
Thank you.
Rob?
Hi, so looking at the landscape plan, the first thing I would comment on is removing or replacing the Berberis thunbergii you have at the foundation. That's a restricted plant by the DNR. This is an invasive species. I would recommend something native like Dire Villa or dwarf bush honeysuckle. Is just one suggestion. Just as sustainability efforts continue in the city, we try to look to a native palette. And that could go for all of the suggested plants. And this is just, since you're going to replace them, you know, putting in some native grasses that are going to have some height that's going to give you winter interest, not just like a hosta is just going to die depending on what size you put into. They're going to disappear on this length of frontage. Whereas if you put in some little blue stem or some grasses, just a thought. And then evaluating some of those, some shrubs, existing shrubs. Some of those can be rejuvenated, pruned, where you cut them back and they'll come back. The evergreens don't operate like that. They can be pruned up to improve attractiveness depending on the extent of dieback. But that's something to look at. As far as the north side of the property, there's a, on that far north bay, there's a parking lot break with a tree island pit that's screaming for a tree because that's what it's there for. So I would consider adding one there. Yeah, those are my lands.
The one that's not, that's farthest from the building? Not the one that's along the sidewalk there, it's.
No. The one that's at an empty tree island, unless there's a utility conflict. That's why we require the parking lots to be broken up more than 12 stalls so that we can accommodate something to kind of reduce heat island, provide shade. Any questions on the landscaping? Those comments?
My only question is, do you have a list of preferred plants? Is that part of that landscape or lighting, parking, and landscaping?
I don't know if there is a preferred list in there.
The
But-
city does have a preferred list of native trees that we have, but I don't know that we have of all the plants.
Okay,
I could always send some suggestions to Doug too, and for consideration. But yeah, the Berberis or the barberry, that should be replaced.
okay. Thank you.
I don't think I have any other comments that haven't already been addressed.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Christy?
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that Chris touched on was the out front between the Spirea japonica and the Syringia. There's that gap with no landscaping right up in the front. And Chris had addressed that. So I didn't know if you were waiting to determine where your monument sign would go to determine that, or do you think you will be filling that in with some landscaping?
We can look at that. I don't think, I'll have to scroll down to the sign plan. I don't think that's where the sign is going, but it does make sense to put some more planting there because it looks like it was there at one point and then something happened.
Yeah.
It's very consistent and then all of a sudden nothing.
There's a gap. Yeah, that's really the only comment I had. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Christine. Brian?
Yeah, I think pretty much everything has been covered. Lighting issue has been, landscape has definitely, and everything else was covered. I'm good.
Great. Do we have a motion or any other? Yes, Chris?
I reread my notes. I did have one more comment. Oh shoot, that's the signage. When I was talking about your address, that really could be part of this, but your address, I guess we'll talk about on the signage plan, but I think that's a poor location where it's at. It's back from the main building. So it's on the taller part. So it's way back from what you see. You see the office and it's partially hid by all those trees. So I don't know, typically that's something, you know, we talk about with the building that there's a solid address for fire and emergency personnel. So I don't know if it'd be more appropriate to have it on this motion or the other one, but I think that's something that we should meet with the fire chief, Doug, and find out somewhere where they say, yeah, this is a great spot. And I assume the applicant would have no issues with that. But the corner you show, when you go out on the site and look at it, it's hid by a lot of those trees and it's quite a ways back from the road. When you think about it, the
Right.
lower former office part is much closer.
That's a good point. We can check with fire marshal on that. It is on both of the flat sides of the monument sign plus the edge. So when we talk about that, that may help with identification too. But
Yeah.
point taken, we don't want to put it somewhere that it won't be visible.
So I guess somebody could tell me, it seems to me identification of the building would be more appropriate under the conditional approval for this than it would be under signage.
Right.
Maybe not.
Well, I think since it's not a sign per se, Chris, you can include it in this. Since you've raised it now as well, is there any? Do I have any kind of a motion for action this evening?
Sure. If you'd like, I'll make a motion that we approve it with conditions 1 through 4 as recommended by staff. Condition 5, that a revised landscape plan be resubmitted to Plan Commission for approval. Condition 6, that all electric fixtures shall be full cutoffs. Condition 7, that a revised erosion control plan be submitted to staff for approval. And condition 8, that screening may be required if the replacement or alternate equipment is substantially larger than the existing equipment. And condition number 9, that the applicants meet with the fire chief to find a suitable location for their address on the building that they both agree on.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Chris?
The reason I asked for the landscape plan to come back to Plan Commission, well, number one, I know you're remote, but with these Zoom meetings, it's not much of an inconvenience. It's pretty easy to hop on. But number two, there's a lot of things that we talked about. Certainly the screening along the parking lot in the front, doing something on that northeast side, the tree, looking at some of that. So I think it'd be appropriate to have it come back, look at what you're thinking, and we can see if that's what we were thinking. So in other words, you'd have approvals on everything, but the landscape plan would need to just come back for a touch up. Everything else, assuming that you agree with it, is would be done.
Right.
Okay.
Can I ask, I'd assume there's no issues with any of these conditions?
Right. We have a second. Is there anything else before we take a vote, commissioners? Rob, just in terms of timing, since I'm assuming that you all would like to get going sooner rather than later, is that landscape list that you offered that you could send to Doug something that you can do fairly quickly?
Yeah, I'll just give some suggestions and it shouldn't take long. I can have that tonight.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I mean, tomorrow, early next week. Definitely early
Well,
next week.
I'm an hour ahead of you, so I won't be looking at it tonight when you get off at 11 p.m. my time. I think you said it was going to be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rob. I just want to double check that. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We look
Thank you.
forward
Appreciate it.
to seeing you back for your landscaping, but otherwise, most definitely seeing you here in Winona. And we're excited for this new venture for you as well as for us, since it's a new concept.
Yep. We're excited too. Thank you guys for your support.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to new business. 6A, public hearing on the request by Restaurant Depot for new signage at 6950 Gisholt Drive, case number S005-2021. So now we're on to the signage for Restaurant Depot. Heather, will you be kicking this one off as well, or is there someone else here representing you for the signage?
No, I can walk through this one as well.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like me to share the screen, Heather?
Yeah, if you could, please, Doug.
Sure.
Thank you. So here again is our site, and just in general, this is similar to the plan that we showed at the workshop meeting. The one thing that we have added is a monument sign, as was discussed. So at the two driveway entrances, we have some directional signage for customer and truck traffic, just so we make sure that there are minimal conflicts there. There are two monument sign locations shown here. I don't know, and maybe Tricia can speak to this, I don't know that there is a strong preference one way or the other. So we certainly, you know, if you feel strongly about one or the other, would consider that. And then also the address number that we spoke about is included here. And then the cabinet and channel letters that are building mounted. So then moving on to the elevations, you can see the front of the building, which is existing with some paint bands at the top, and then the Restaurant Depot Express logo shown there. And that sign will be internally illuminated. And then the directional signs. And then the monument sign, which again, as I mentioned earlier, has the logo on the two flat sides, as well as an additional address on the thin side that would face the road.
Great. Is there anyone else that's here to speak on the public hearing portion of signage for Restaurant Depot? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to 6B, consideration of action on the request by Restaurant Depot for new signage at 6950 Gisholt Drive, case number S005-2021. Doug?
Thank you. So as previously mentioned, this is kind of a packet of signage.
Hang on. Oh, you got it.
And so the first item being the wall sign. In the CDD, applicants are allowed up to 150 square feet of signage based upon frontage. The building is 179 feet long, with the sign being 107. As proposed, the sign meets the city standards. The monument sign, again, the standards or allowances would be 60 square feet in area, but only 5 feet in height. And so the sign, in terms of the signage area, meets the requirements, but it is 8 feet tall. Also, the location appears to be of concern, that it must be located a minimum of 15 feet from the curb street face, as well as on premise. And it appears that both of those, it's not immediately clear from the site plan, but both of those may be in violation there. The same is echoed for the on-site directional signage. The signage area and the height of the sign appear to be acceptable. But again, the location of both of those signs, both the receiving as well as the customer entrance, appear to be potentially challenged in both their location, but also vision angle challenges with the entry and exit. The address sign has been covered in the previous item. Also of note, the window coverings, there had been discussion of potential design on those, but the applicant decided to go with a sort of opaque film instead rather than anything else. So at this point, staff recommends discussion of this item.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Brian, would you like to start us out on this one?
Yeah, I was trying to get a comparison with the is it the Kilgurst property and the sizing.
Mhm.
Doug, how does that compare to this size? Given that I know we, if I remember correctly, we made an exception because of the amount of square footage of the total flat area on that wall, and just curious of how it compares, if you have a rough estimate.
I can pull that sheet up. I believe the wall sign is much smaller than the Kilgurst existing, but that's the only signage that appears to be there. There's not a monument sign on site. So I can pull that up if that would be useful. They do, in the application, there is a side-by-side of the Kilgurst and the Restaurant Depot.
Yeah, and then regarding the location of the monument and the other signs as it relates to the setback piece, because it's on my phone, I can't pull that part up. I'm wondering if you're able to share your screen and show where that location is, and if this is a concern of where their property line lies and where the signs are located, and if it makes sense. There are times that we have setbacks that it makes sense that we make an exception based on what makes realistic sense versus what is kind of just true by code. And I'm curious, if we move those signs back, do we have an issue with vision? And that would be my only question. If that's not the case and we're able to meet the setbacks and vision is not an issue, I would recommend that we meet the setback requirement as we have out there. And those are my kind of immediate kind of opinions at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Corinne?
I had just a couple questions. You have the sign for the customer entrance and then the truck receiving entrance. And I was just wondering, are you anticipating that customers will enter and exit at the same curb cut and then the same with the receiving trucks? Because on the sign it says, well, it says entry. I lost it for a second. I guess I'm just wondering, like, are you trying to control the entry and exit? Do you think that's going to be enough to do that?
Also, in all of our stores that we have, we do have signage that directs our trucks into a different entrance than our customers. And historically with our sites, we've had success using this signage to do that. And it's really just to keep the two apart, just to keep cars from going into the place where the trucks are going and et cetera.
And I guess if you're only expecting maybe 4 deliveries a day and there's smaller trucks, maybe it's not as big of an issue for this site that it would be for one of your larger warehouses.
Yes, that's correct. That's a fair observation. So yeah, we've done it because it's standard with our practices and it's worked well for us. To your point, we won't have as many deliveries under this new model, but we have had luck keeping it separate. So we included it in our package because it's worked well for us in our other branches.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with it. I can't tell about the vision triangle concerns that you were raising, Doug.
Right.
So it's just hard to tell how that is gonna work. So I guess that's just one of my thoughts. And then, I was thinking about our conversation about the Metro Market and the stack sign versus the landscape versus the portrait. And I think we're dealing with a taller 8-foot monument sign here again, because the logo of Restaurant Depot is tall and not long. And I'm not sure if they were to shrink that down, if it would be as visible. So I guess if you had to make that monument sign smaller, would that be a workable solution? Or is this the size that you think is the size that's going to make it readable from the street?
Oh, go ahead.
Trisha, I don't know if you, I mean, I know that there were several different options looked at for the monument sign, and you're absolutely right that it does want to be kind of a square. And in particularly if we're talking about now lowering it and possibly pushing it back away from the site into where we have more landscaping, we would have to look at all those factors to see if we could successfully do that. But with a 5-foot high sign, the diameter of that logo probably goes to less than 3 feet. And then you have to be on top of it before you can really read some of the lettering.
Okay. Then from that perspective too, looking at the drawing, it seemed like maybe option, again, it's hard to tell, but maybe option 1, it seems like that might be more out of the vision triangle than option 2. But I guess I'll be interested to hear what others have to say.
Is that it, Corinne?
Yeah, those are my only questions.
Okay, great. Chris?
Thank you.
Thanks. I have a little stronger feelings about this. I would absolutely be opposed to putting any of these signs in the right of way for a number of reasons. But number one, when we did this industrial park, we thought it was going to be just industrial, so we only put sidewalks on one side of the road. They happen to be across from you, but the reason it looks like you actually have room here is because the sidewalks aren't in yet. And if we did anything in the right of way, we'd be excluding ourselves from ever putting a sidewalk in here. 2, I'm just going to go to the reality of the situation. And number one, the monument sign, we have, there's no hardship here to go to 8 foot tall, none whatsoever. It's a 25-mile-an-hour road on a curve. It's not like people are going by at 50 miles an hour. You have an 8-foot square sign on the building. They won't miss that. The purpose of a monument sign is to identify an entrance. And I know everybody doesn't have a paper copy, but the option 2 location, it's deceiving the way it's drawn because those trees are not that close to the curb. There's 15 to 20 feet before a tree is even near that curb. So there's ample space where that one tree's kind of drawn to put a monument sign in there. You wouldn't have a vision triangle problem. And we don't have a lot of monument signs. I drove around, looked at them all. There's nothing that exceeds 5 feet, and they're just to notify somebody they've gotten to your driveway. And I don't think anybody would possibly miss the 8-foot sign on the building. So I can't imagine why we would start a precedent of allowing 8-foot tall monument signs here. And the same would go for the directional signs. They need to be out of the right of way. Again, if I'm number one, it's for vision, but number 2, it's if we ever want to put a sidewalk or do something back in there again. And there is adequate room, certainly on the this thing's at an angle, but the northeast entrance, there's nothing to the east or northeast of that driveway. And there is, again, there, if you look at where the way it's drawn, it's a little different than that. There's quite a bit of room on property to the southwest of that entrance too. The only place you might have an issue would be the southwest entrance on the southwest side. That landscaping is right tied up, but there's like I said, there's a lot of room northeast of that driveway. The wall sign, I think, is just fine. I mean, I said it's 8-foot square, but you know what? It looks good on the building. That size, I think, suits the building well. And I think it'll make it very visible for people that are looking for you. And then the last comment would be that, it might be my last, I think we should just mention that we're not considering the yellow and blue stripes you're looking at painting on the building signage. We're considering that just architectural detailing. I noticed you put it on the signage plan. I assume you're planning on doing some decorating to the building, painting those stripes on there. Looks good with your sign,
Yes.
great, everything,
Yeah.
but it's, we have to be clear that we're not considering that signage. It's just accent on the building.
Thanks for those comments. I would point out too, on the monument sign, we would, if we had, it sounded like you were thinking the monument sign belongs near the main entrance, and we would probably want to put it on the northern entrance if that's the one we're intending for customers to use, because that would be kind of where we're wanting to draw them.
Yeah.
And we do have that sanitary sewer that's running kind of near that area. So we'd have to look at that closely and make sure we didn't have any conflicts. I think there's probably some space there, but we just want to make sure that we avoid that.
I agree with everything you said, and actually the northeast side of that northeast driveway is a great spot. There's nothing there, and then there's still enough room on the southwest side of that entrance to put your directional signage on your own property, which leaves more than enough space for your directional signage by that southwest driveway. And if you keep your proportions the same to meet our code, you basically have a 3x3 sign on a 5-foot high monument. And then the one other thing on which, you know, it'll be very visible if you look at the other signs in that area, especially like I say, at a low speed limit. And what will pertain to what is a condition of your previous approval is the monument signs are required to be landscaped. So there'll have to be some, when you resubmit your landscape plan, showing some foundation, if you will, plantings around that, what you propose to do. That is a condition for the monument sign. We used to call them landscape signs, but somebody decided that wasn't a good thing to call it. So now they're monument signs that are landscaped.
Perfect.
And I agree, there would be a condition that you just need to coordinate with Madison Metropolitan Sewage District to make sure we don't plop a sign right on top of their interceptor.
Yep.
Great. Chris, anything else?
Thank you. No.
Okay. Rob?
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add. I would agree that we should keep it outside of the right of way and maintain the 5-foot height max. With the additions of the striping on the building, you're gonna have repetition of branding, coloring with the directional signage, the monument sign, the wall sign. I think that identifies your building adequately enough. And just finding the right spot outside of the right of way, I think, is appropriate. So that's all I have.
Right. Thank you. Christy?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had explored the signage for the monument sign, keeping the logo signature like you have it on your building. So with the circle, with the express to the right, and then potentially taking the address number 6950 off of the very bottom and maybe putting it up in the right-hand corner. So it would be more visible, because I was wondering about, once you landscape that monument sign, is your address number at the bottom of the sign going to be covered up? Unless you're tending that, you know, pretty diligently. So that might be a way you could decrease your signage height and get the address number a little more visible. But I agree. I think that northeast corner seems like a good spot for it. I was out there today and I almost wondered if more of your traffic might come from the Walmart direction. So more of the northern end. And I think that's possible, but it is really wide open over there. I don't think people are going to have any trouble finding your sign. So I did feel that 8 feet was a little overkill. But I think you might be able to explore with your sign designer, getting it into that more horizontal signature and having your number a little more visible up toward the top. So other than that, that's really all I have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion? Chris?
Do we think we know enough that we would have a motion tonight, or would it be better to have this come back and see what they propose, what the designs are like? This is just signage. It doesn't affect anything else on the building, but the things I've written down are the 5-foot maximum height. If they just shrink it, we know what it's going to look like, but they may take Christie's suggestion and maybe make it a little wider or something. We don't know. All signs have to be out of the right of way, so we should have location, show where that is, coordinate with MMSD, and then the landscaping, the monument sign. I mean, we can craft a condition with all this, but then I think Doug, the onus would be on him to make sure the intent of tonight's meetings met, and if not, that it comes back here.
Right, I wasn't necessarily suggesting a motion to approve, but it could be a motion to table for precisely the reason that you're talking about, Chris, or to come back. You know, I could be a motion a consistent, action doesn't have to be approval, as you know. So if the commission feels like they want to see another set of plans, I'm happy to hear from other people. It sounds like Chris wants to see it again.
I think if they meet the conditions as stated by Chris, I think it's pretty straightforward as far as I can tell. As long as they find an appropriate spot and meet those requirements.
Okay. What about other people? Corrine, you feeling like it needs to come back, or are you good with a set of conditions?
I think we don't necessarily need to see it again either. I mean, I think if the conditions are crafted to the way that you had talked about it, Chris, out of the right of way on their property,
Okay.
I'd be comfortable.
Brian?
Yeah, I'm fine either way. I mean, location might impact some other pieces such as landscaping. And since we already have them coming back for landscaping, this will not stop them from moving forward with the project. So I think coming back is not a bad idea, given that they can still continue forward with the project.
Okay. Christy, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't want to be wishy-washy either. I feel it could go either way, but I feel like I would entirely trust Doug to make this call with the conditions. And so if I had to choose one, I'd put it on Doug. How about that, Doug? Just to keep the things moving for them and keep things going.
Well, so it appears that we have somewhat of a split. We have a few people that are saying Doug and a few people that are saying bring it back. Chris, are having listened to the other commissioners, do you have a sense?
I think with our discussion and Doug being clear of what our intention is, and if it comes back different, bring it back. And it'll be final approval by staff, and then you always have the ability to bring it back to the plan commission if you say, this isn't what I heard.
Right.
Yeah.
We're good with that? Applicants are good with all this?
Sounds great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, I'll move approval. Condition 1, that the monument sign is a maximum 5-foot height, and it's located northeast of the Northeast Drive. Condition 2, that all ground signs are located out of the right of way. Condition 3 is that as a commission, we're recognizing that the additional striping on the building is not signage. It's simply architectural element of the building. Condition 4, that the applicant coordinate with MMSD to ensure that none of these signs are placed right over the top of that interceptor main. And condition 5, that the landscape plan that's coming back for review also reflect adequate landscaping around the base of the monument sign.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Rob. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Again, congratulations.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Yeah, feedback was really helpful. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you all who have been waiting through Restaurant Depot this evening. We know it's a long meeting, and we appreciate everybody's patience. I'll now go to item D, consideration of action. Sorry. Item C, rather, the public hearing on the request of ENR Investments for approval of zoning permit of the new use at 6325 Winona Drive, case number 2-008-2021. Mohammed, you're up. I hope you're still here. Uh-oh.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
All
Mohammed,
right.
welcome back.
Yep, I'm here.
Welcome
Can-
back. You're up. You go ahead and present, if you would. We're in the public hearing portion of your request.
Okay. My name is Mohammed, and I would like to open a tobacco store next to Bill O'Connell liquor store, which has been vacant for 5 years. So, selling adult tobacco products, like I stated in my the plan, tobacco bags, premium cigar, disposable vape, and tobacco accessories, CBD. And we're gonna do renovation in the store, nothing major. Changing light fixtures, changing the light tube bulbs, and putting new shelving, paint the whole store. Nothing major repair, but inside make it presentable. And the store hour is gonna be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
Okay.
And we're hoping average about 10 customers per hour. And we have about 9-10 parkings. Besides the liquor store, what they have. If we look at the whole parking lot, we got over 22 parkings.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have. If you have any questions for me.
Okay. Great. Anybody else here to speak on the public hearing portion of this request?
I do have one piece of public comment that was received, if this is the right time to share it.
Yes.
So this was from Craig Hayes, who is the owner of Tully's 2, adjacent to this property. I spoke with him a couple times about this application, explained what the application entailed. I don't think he could join us tonight, but he did submit a letter. It was also included in the posted packet as well. The primary concern from Mr. Hayes is that no alcohol, food, or beverage be permitted to be sold on premise. I did explain the business, but I think specifically he was concerned about those elements. And we spoke about parking as well. And again, making sure that delineation in the shared parking here was important to him, that there not be any additional parking that sort of encroaches into Tully's. So that was received and included in the packet for reference.
Great, thank you. Having heard of no other people here for the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing on that request and move to item D, consideration of action on the request by ENR Investment for approval of zoning permit for new use at 6325 Winona Drive, case number 2-008-2021. Doug?
Thank you. So the applicant is seeking a zoning permit here. The building, as mentioned, has been vacant for more than 6 months and thus requires a zoning permit. And the CDD that is reviewed by the Plan Commission. The future land use map of the city's comp plan envisions this to be commercial in use, and the proposed use aligns. Any signage that requires Plan Commission approval would of course require a subsequent permit from the Commission. There are no major renovations planned. Of note, the applicant mentions 9 parking stalls in total. O'Connell's Liquor does have individual sort of signage for each stall that they control. And it was suggested in discussion and backing up the conversation from the owner of Tully's that may be an option to delineate or demarcate parking again for this use. A couple of staff comments, again, from the city clerk and the fire chief. And with that, staff recommends approval with the conditions as mentioned in the staff report.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
Chris, would you like to start us off?
Oh, I'm not muted. Sure, I see no issues. I drive by there a lot. There's always plenty of parking. The biggest thing they'll have are wildly successful. Ikesters might not be able to locate there. But I have no comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I have no problem with the use. As far as one improvement would be nice to see is an exterior trash can akin to O'Connell's. I spent this weekend cleaning up trash along Winona Drive, and there are a lot of tobacco product trash along there. And it's all the way up and down, but I think it would help to reduce litter in that parking lot. And there seems to be a lot there already. So it's my only comment.
Thank you, Rob. Brian?
Yeah, the only question I have for Doug is, were there any issues or concerns about I think it was the tobacco outlet across the street where Reptile Rapture is?
No comments that I heard. And I checked with the city clerk as well, and it was a fairly straightforward license, tobacco license, I believe, that would be needed. But I did not hear anything from the use across the street.
Perfect. The comments that others have shared address my issue. So thank you.
Thank you. Christy?
Yeah, I really like the suggestion of a trash can there. That would be great. I think I've seen a lot of litter there as well. It will be nice to see this space occupied. It has been empty for a long time. It's really small and kind of a tricky one to fill. I think it's a complementary usage for the liquor store. And yeah, I think you'll probably get a lot of business in that location. Maybe, Mohammed, maybe you can talk with the liquor store or maybe with the landlord about helping get that trash can in place.
Yeah, which shouldn't be a problem because we do want to put a trash can outside and probably like a cigarette butt, cigarette lighter, trash can too. One you see a lot of time you see on the restaurant outside or by the airports. So we're gonna have something like that, a trash can and a cigarette butt trash can for it.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think they call that a smoker's pole.
Yeah, something like.
Yeah, I think a smoker's pole would definitely be needed, not only right at the entrance, but anywhere else that we might see cigarette butt trash on the grounds of your proposed retail store to avoid additional cigarette butt trash.
I was planning to do that. I have few other stores which I do it in all my stores. So that's just for me, it's less cleaning because I want my parking lot to be clean for my customers when they walk in. I don't want trash on my parking lot. It's not a good business.
Great, thank you.
And I was just going to say, we are really big on recycling too. So if I was going to push the envelope, I'd ask for a recycling bin out there as well. But that's up to you.
I can get that too.
I would really like that.
Leaders who would, I have a really good connection with Pepsi, so they actually bring a Pepsi recycle can, trash can, which is like a blue color, and I can accommodate that.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Corinne?
My only question, you mentioned CBD. Do you think that's going to be a main product that you sell, or will it mostly be tobacco products? Tobacco
and premium cigars.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
Because
two CBD.
There is a store across the street next to Quick Trip, and I'm not competing with them at all. It's not going to be, huge CBD store. So.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I was going to say, because we already have a couple of those close by. So no concerns, no other questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Corinne. Do I have a motion? Chris?
I'll move approval of conditions 1 through 3 as written by staff, and condition 4 that additional trash can and cigarette butt receptacle be installed with final approval by staff.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, Chrissy, thank you. All those in favor, say
May
aye.
may I first?
Yes, you may.
The reason I put final approval by staff is we don't want to just have a galvanized trash can or something that looks really bad out there. We usually ask applicants to try to match our streetscape or have something similar to it. So I think it's important that the applicant meet with Doug and show him. Normally we would have a cut sheet to show us what he's proposing. Since this was a last minute thing at the commission, I think it'd be fair to have Doug look at it, but just make sure we don't get something out there, no offense, but that looks trashy. Because we are trying to keep our streetscape consistent through there.
No, I do have black container garbage cans that you find at the gas stations.
Yeah.
I own about 4 or 5 gas stations, so I have those, mobile gas station trash cans. That's what I was going to put out there.
Yeah, that's why I put in the approved by staff so that you and Doug can look at what you're planning on putting out there, and we can get something there that looks reasonable for the area.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Mohammed, congratulations.
Thank you.
We look forward to having your business open, and we thank you for as Christy said, filling that vacant space.
Yeah, thank you.
We wish you all the best in your business. Okay, I'm going to move to item E, a public hearing on the request by owner Andrew Mccarthy for approval of a zoning permit for a new boathouse in a multifamily zoning district at 4017 Winona Drive, case number 2-009-2021. Andrew.
Nancy, thank you for the time to bring this before the commission. So just some background. So we moved in around 2017, and since that time, we've been trying to beautify the property and also, make it more usable, obviously being on the lake there. I want to show a few images of what it looked like before, where we're taking this, to give the commission a chance to see kind of our intent. Doug, could you potentially share Exhibit 1 from our proposal?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
They come left. No, I need to close.
So once we get it on up here, I'll kind of do some of the talk over of it. So the pictures kind of speak for themselves. You kind of scroll down a little bit. The old boathouse was, frankly, a corrugated iron shack. During the floods of 2018, 2019, it got severely damaged to where it wasn't even usable as a storage facility anymore. You can keep scrolling down if you want, Doug. The shoreline itself was also in disrepair when we moved in. Here's just one image. We didn't take a lot of photos back then because we didn't like what it looked like, frankly. What we're looking at doing is continuing to beautify the area. So far we've done landscaping. You can see the landscaping that we've got done here and the next one as well to try to make it better. Now we're to the point where it's time for the boathouse. So this isn't as pretty, but it shows you the site we're looking at here because we've got it already prepared. We're looking to put in a boathouse on this pad. The height of it will be below this terraced hill line. So if you look where the rock terrace goes up, the actual roof of the boathouse will be at or below that line. We're actually looking at using a gangplank type causeway to get to the top of the boathouse itself. Can you scroll down a little bit further here, Doug? I'm going to show an example here, just kind of showing the shoreline in general. There's one of our neighbors. You can kind of see how the hill blocks it. And then I'm going to keep moving down a little bit. Oops, too far. I can go up a little bit. Yeah, sorry, I missed one. Up more. Yeah, and there's the other side of the neighbor there. And there you can see there's a tree that's blocking the vision. Plus, again, the hill is substantially blocking that. you could probably stop share. Let's just keep going, Doug. We'll go through all the exhibits here really quick. My apologies. So again, below the hill, we are trying to use the single family zoning rules as a guideline. We initially thought that's where we were. Doug kindly gave me a call a little bit ago and said, nope, you're multifamily, you got to come before the commission. So the planning was always around kind of using those as a guideline from a setback perspective and a size. Total size for the boathouse itself, we're looking at 12 feet tall, 30 deep, and 18 wide. So something that gives us enough room to put a boat in there, have a little bit of room to walk around it, but not trying to get anything massive in this space. And then as you can see in the plans, we are planning for a deck on top with cable railing that should also not impede the view. And then from a drainage, we wanted to come draining back behind the boathouse, not towards the lake. So that's kind of the plan. You see the site plan there. It's really got to zoom in the bottom corner there. So with that, I'd like to ask the commission, I think Doug, you kind of covered my areas. I'm going to stop there, please. But so I'd like to ask the commission for approval to continue the construction of the boathouse, help us beautify the shoreline, make it look nicer for everybody, let us have an actually usable space down there, and move forward. And with that, I'll open up to any questions or commentary.
Yeah, I'm going to step in really quick. I'm 2 doors down from.
Travis, hang on. Just if you can hang on until we call on you, that would be great. So now that Andy's finished his presentation, we did receive word from Travis earlier today that he would like to appear in the public hearing portion of this proposal. So Travis, if you could announce who you are and your address, please, and then you can go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Nancy, to speak tonight. I'm 2 doors down from Andy at 4011 Winona Drive, and my wife and our 2 kids, Max and Kylie, have been here for the last 6 years. When we moved in here 6 years ago, I will tell you that the lot that we were on, as well as our neighbors and on either side of us, as well as Andy's property, which is 2 doors down, were in disarray and very much in need of some TLC. When we moved in, we decided to spend quite a bit of money on our property to not only renovate our home, but also our shoreline and our backyard, to make not only the front end presence on Winona Drive first and foremost, but also our lakeside presence on the lake. One of, what we thought to be one of the most beautiful properties on the lake. And once I finished my construction, I looked to the left and I looked to the right, and candidly, I'm pretty disappointed with the lack of care or TLC that my neighbors have, had for their properties. And I want to give Andy credit for taking this step to beautify his property, and ultimately take a step to making Winona Drive on this end of the lake a very beautiful and desirable place for not only families, but also for boaters and just recreational folks, whether they're fishing or kayaking or boating or doing whatever they do on the lake, to enjoy and appreciate the work that Andy is looking to put in, and some other property owners recently have put into their property.
Great. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here to speak on Andy's proposal? If not, I will close the public hearing.
Nancy, I'd like to, quickly call on my wife, Wendy, as well, who's a designer and did the work on our property. I think she's accidentally on mute and would also like to speak as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I just second what Travis said, and anything to beautify the lakeshore, I think, is really important. Just even comparing what we were able to do with putting in some retention walls and replacing existing ones, I said, compared to some of the neighbors who many of their shorelines have really receded and washed away so much. They're losing big chunks of their lots over the years. So I am happy to endorse what their plan is.
Thank you, Wendy, appreciate it. So with that, I will close the public hearing, as I said, and I will open letter F, which is consideration of action on the request by owner Andrew McCarthy for approval of a zoning permit for a new boathouse in a multifamily zoning district at 4017 Winona Drive, case number 2-009-2021. Doug?
Thank you. So the applicant had run through a lot of this, but just a couple points here is that the multifamily zoning district does not have particular standards for dimensional elements, for setbacks, for height, for things like that. It does, of course, have district standards, as well as also needing to abide by the general use performance standards, both of which were called out in the staff report. In terms of the proposal, it's a 540 square foot boathouse with the roof deck above it, 12 foot 10 in height built into the slope. As shown on the survey, there is a 22 by 24 detached garage in the front of the property. It located in the street yard that came through the Plan Commission in a similar process in June of 2012. And with that, staff recommendation is approval with the one condition of approval. Thanks.
Thank you. Rob, would you like to start us out on this one?
Sure. Thank you. In general, I have no issues with it. I think it's going to be a great improvement. Boathouses in Winona are kind of part of the community character along the lakefront. So to have improved one, I'm in favor of that. I did have a couple of questions. I just wanted to double check, and I think Doug might have touched on this. There's no side yard setbacks that we have to be concerned of here?
Not in this district, no.
Okay. And then on one of the exhibits you submitted where there's the plan view of the proposed boathouse, there's some conflicting dimensions. I just wanted to make sure that you're proposing what are the dimensions are? You have an 8 and an 8 dimension for width, 16 feet. But on the other side, you have an 18-foot dimension.
Yeah, it's the proper dimension should be 18 by 30 by 12 high. So we can get those corrected.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Apologies, we were kind of under a deadline trying to get this in for the meeting, so all the quality checks may not have gone through. We'll resubmit those back to Doug. Okay,
and then there's a 10-foot and a 4-foot dimension coming off of there, which I'm not sure what they're indicating. So,
see
other than that, I'm guessing that's just kind of a production error.
Yeah, I don't know. I have Justin, our builder, on here as well. Justin, could you answer the question on the 4 and 10 foot, if you're still on?
Yep, I'm still here, Andy. So what are you referring to, Doug? Sorry, I'm gonna pull this up real quick.
On the plan view of the proposed boathouse, there are some errant dimensions, a 10-foot and a 4-foot. They don't seem to be dimensioning anything that I can tell. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then also the width of the building being 18 feet, there's discrepancy with two 8-foot kind of equal dimensions. Anyways, so maybe just get that cleaned up. But that was my only comments. Thanks.
Yep. Definitely.
Great, thank you, Rob. Christy?
Yeah, looks like a clear improvement. Looking forward to seeing it come to life. Is the smart side going to match your home?
Yes, we're going to be matching the home the best we can, probably closer to our garage. Our home is an old mortared brick building built in the 30s. I probably couldn't exactly match, but the closest that we can get is the intention.
Yeah, all right, yeah, looks like it's going to be great. I'm excited for you, and you're going to love that rooftop deck. So congratulations, it's very nice.
Corinne,
No questions.
Brian,
No concerns. I think it looks great. Thank you.
Chris?
I think it looks good as far as, Rob, your couple questions. A lot of times when we review these, he's a single family home in the multifamily district. We try to mirror where it's appropriate, the single family setbacks. And in this case, for that structure, it would be a 3-foot setback. He's showing 4 foot. And the maximum allowed for the structure would be 900 square feet, and he's well below that. So I feel like it's important for us to try to keep the same feel for the areas we would if it were a single family and it was being approved by the building inspector. So I think he's well within that. The building's well within it. And I think, Rob, that 10 foot by 4 foot you're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but you're going to have a little deck bridge going from your property over to the top of the boathouse so you can get to the deck.
Chris, you're completely right. My mind blanked. But yes, that's how we get to the roof.
Okay, because the ground behind it's still tapered a little bit, but it still isn't really above it. There's just going to be some dips there, and to get the water around the back of that boathouse, it's a little bridge structure, I believe, that'll take you up to the top of the deck. My last question would be for Andy. I believe you're not anticipating doing any work below ordinary high water. Is that correct?
That is correct. Everything will be above ordinary high water.
Because we don't have authority there, so I would suggest we'd have a condition that no work happens below ordinary high water. That would be the DNR's jurisdiction.
That is completely correct.
And other than that, I think it looks great. And personally, I'd rather see a boat in a boathouse that's going to leak or drip or something. I'd rather see that there than hanging out over the water.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. Do we have a motion?
Well, since I haven't muted yet, I could make a motion if you'd like. I move approval with condition as recommended by staff, and add condition 2 that no portion of this work shall be below ordinary high water mark.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Rob. Okay. Barring any other discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Andy, congratulations and thank you. I'm sure it's going to look beautiful. I appreciate everything you've done with your property. And Gavinsky's, thank you for coming as well, and for what you've done on your property, since you were speaking about that earlier as well. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That takes us to item G. Thank you, One City Schools, for your patience this evening. I know it's been a long one. So item G is a pre-hearing conference on the request by One City Schools for consideration of a zoning permit for a new use at 1707 West Broadway, case number 2-010-2021. Who is up first for One City Schools?
I'll go ahead and get started.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. My name's David Steffen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with One City Schools. And we're happy to be here tonight to introduce ourselves to the city of Winona and tell you a little bit about our proposed use for the building at 1707 West Broadway. We're an organization that operates currently 2 schools, a preschool at our founding location at 2012 Fisher Street, right off Park Street on the south side. And we're also operating an elementary school in a temporary location nearby at 450 Coyer Lane. Our goals with this property is to move into a forever home, to grow our elementary school to full size. Currently we serve students 4K through 2nd grade. Next year we'll be expanding through 4th grade. Subsequent year adding 5th, and then also 6th through 10. Following year all the way through 12th grade. So our goal is to find a forever home to build our program from preschool all the way through high school graduation. This is the facility that will allow us the size to do that in a good location near our home on Fisher Street, so our families can travel nearby the community that they're already in. And we stand ready to talk more about the materials we submitted to Doug a couple weeks ago and answer any questions that you might have. And also are very curious to know what kind of things we can prepare for future meetings, so we can make sure that we're presenting the best possible plan for the city of Monona and also for us at One City Schools.
Terrific. Is there anyone here of your crew else that would like to speak on before we get specifically into the proposal or into the plans in this pre-hearing setting? Is there anyone else of your crew that wanted to speak?
Well, I would sure like to invite everybody on the One City crew to introduce themselves. You may have some specific questions for them. I know our CEO, Colleen Pierre, is here. We have board members here. I saw Joe Krupp here. Our attorney, Jared Walker-Smith, is here. Board member, former Congressman Scott Klug is here. Our school principal, Farron DeBell, is here. Member of our facilities committee, a parent as well, Ms. Felton is here. Our architectural team is here. Jolie and Associates, and architect working on the project, Rafik Assad, is here as well. So we do have a number of people from our team who can certainly fill in gaps that I will need help filling in. Our VP of External Relations, Gail Wiseman, is here as well. So we all stand ready to answer your questions and take copious notes in preparation for the next time.
Okay, great. Well, I would love it if folks just want to introduce themselves very briefly, that we would welcome that. Who wants to start? Anybody can dive in.
I'll start. I'm Devin Davis. I'm the school developer for One City, planning for our expansion through 12th grade.
Great, thank you.
Scott Klug, Winona resident at this point, and I think this is a great opportunity not only for the general Madison area, but for Winona in particular. It's a great project, and you'll hear more about the leadership of the school, but we couldn't ask for a better team, and I think we can also fill you in on some of the financing details since it's already public record.
Thank you.
I'm Farron DeBell. I'm the principal of the elementary school.
Great, thank you.
I'm Joe Krupp. I'm a board member and one of the early supporters of One City.
Terrific.
I'm Colleen Pierre. I'm the founder and CEO of One City Schools. It's good to be on here with you all.
Great. Did you have him here? Who else?
I'm Jared. Oh, go ahead.
I'm Elizabeth Felton. I am a parent of 2 children that attend One City, and I'm a parent representative on the facilities committee.
I'm Jared Walker-Smith. I'm an attorney with Boardman and Clark, and I represent One City. I'm the least important person here out of all the good work everyone else does, but here to help figure out what the next steps are and make sure that the Plan Commission gets whatever materials you need.
Right.
I think you're important, Jared. I'm Gail Wiseman, VP of External Relations. It's a team effort.
Yeah, thank you. Who else? Anybody else?
I'm Joe Lee with JLA Architects.
Okay.
I think we have one other person from our team as well.
Okay, great.
Hello,
So,
my name is Rafik Assad and I JLA Architects as well.
okay, fantastic. So unless anybody else wants to introduce themselves, we should go to, this is a pre-hearing conference on a specific proposal. So Joe, do you have anything to share with us at this point?
As far as plans?
Yeah.
No, we are in the process of finalizing a program for the school. And David and Colleen and their team can probably go into some detail on what that will include, but we are in the conceptual planning stages right now, and we're going to be following up with a future submittal that will detail specifically what they want to do. But it's very exciting to be involved and to make their dream become a reality. Okay. So I'll leave that up to Colleen and David to explain a little bit more about the specifics of what they want to do with that facility.
Okay.
Share more. Would it be helpful if someone walked through the submittal? I know it's a couple-page document here, but just highlighting some of the.
Yeah, just highlighting some of the things in the submittal. Exactly. That would be terrific. Yeah.
Okay. David, would you want to do that? I'd be happy to lead if
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds great.
Deb, if you wanted to even put it up on the screen, or I have it on my screen as well. I can just walk.
I can pull it up.
That'd be great. Try to hit on some of the key points I'm sure everybody would like to know about early on. I've told you a little bit about who we are and what our intent is for the property. Now, as far as how we would change the property early on here, we're considering the project to be a two-phase project. We're beginning with renovations just inside the facility, building classroom space, collaborative workspace, some additional lavatories, and of course signage, which I know we'll have to come back to this this commission with a plan for our signage as well. But that first phase is to be preparing classroom space and outdoor signage so that people using the facility know who's there and who we are. Next phase will be the continued development of the inside of the facility. As I mentioned in my opening kind of greeting to you all, is that we'll be operating through 4th grade next year, but the eventual plan is to go all the way through 12th grade at the facility. So we'll be utilizing all 3 above ground floors and then also the 4th floor lower level at the facility for our students and staff. And so those renovations, after we're prepared for this next year, will continue on into the next year as well to finish the space for the remainder of our program. And we don't anticipate making changes to the building's footprint, and we're keen on keeping all of the trees in place on the property. One of the things that we are exploring that you should know about is the addition of a gymnasium. We're looking at the feasibility of including that on the parking structure that's on the property. And we're open to working with the city for how that could look, and if we do need to change the footprint of the facility as it stands now, be very collaborative as far as that's concerned. That's the one kind of really big change to the footprint that we're considering now, is a gymnasium space for our students. Again, we'd be using the facility to educate scholars grades 5K through 12. Our 4K program will remain at our home location at 2012 Fisher Street. You can see here just kind of the numbers for our expansion. Next year, we anticipate just over 230 scholars to be in the facility, but within a few years' time, so at final growth, the 24-25 school year, we're anticipating an enrollment of 888 students in the facility with an additional 100 staff. For comparison, at the maximum usage that WPS had, the facility was filled with 885 employees. We've learned that the planned maximum for the facility was 1,061. So we're going to be, similar usage. Devin introduced herself. She's our school developer. One of the things that we're developing is also an early college program. So we do anticipate that our older scholars, once they reach the 11th and 12th grade, may also be taking classes off-site. So that will reduce some of the traffic and also occupancy of the facility. We don't anticipate there being, well, let's just go through it. Hours of operation. We do have an extended school day, so there'll be people at the facility from as early as 6:30 in the morning to into the evening, but the main hours of operation will be 8:15 a.m. to 5 p.m. This year, we've used a staggered schedule to accommodate. I should note that we've been in person all year at our temporary location. We've been in person since September 1st. And one of the strategies that we've used is really keeping tight cohorts, meaning that our classes don't mix with one another and we don't use common spaces. And as part of that strategy, we stagger drop off and pickup times at our school. And as we grow and we have an elementary and then an upper school 6 through 12, staggering drop off and pickup times will probably be a strategy that we employ as well. So these numbers, or excuse me, these hours of operation are a good estimate, but they will vary slightly as we grow to accommodate traffic flow and also the safety of our students. Currently, we employ 25 individuals who work at the elementary school. This number could grow to approximate 100 employees and maintenance staff, teachers, student support coming in and out of the building every day. As a school, we don't entertain a lot of visitors during the hours of operation. We have currently weekly food delivery and then bi-weekly supplies delivery. This will increase as our enrollment increases, but it'll remain very much those types of deliveries for our food service program and deliveries just for office supplies and general maintenance equipment that we'll need. Again, as a school, we don't have very many visitors throughout the day, nor do we have very many deliveries throughout the day. The type of visitors that we do have would be with our partners, the university research team that we work with, could be parents coming to the school for our FAST program in the evenings, or for parent-teacher conferences and things like that. But as a school, obviously we have few visitors. Currently, we utilize the parking stalls for our staff, about 25. We could have, need for as many of 100 each day for our staff. When we add older grades, 10 through 12, some of these students will be able to drive. But just if you were to take full enrollment of 10 and 12th grade and all of the staff, we don't anticipate that we'd be using more than, 300 stalls maximum. The parking structure, or excuse me, 400. The parking structure accommodates more than 700. So we don't anticipate that our traffic flow will be more than what's already been at the site. We've talked a little bit about the site improvements. We're working with JLA architects and also Findorf builders to plan the renovation of the facility on both the interior and exterior. We're excited to show you those plans once they come into sharper focus. I mentioned that we're keen on keeping the landscape as it is, and the trees are currently, for instance, the temporary site that we use right now has a large prairie on it with some walking trails and some trees, and we found that to be actually a very adequate play space for our students. So any kind of changes that we would make to the vegetation to accommodate student play, we would want to keep them minimal, and we'd be very open to comment and suggestions for how to best do that. Of course, we would like outdoor play space for our scholars, but we also value the trees and the vegetation that's already on the site. And again, I've mentioned that we're working with the team to determine if the parking deck can be used for this kind of active space, a gymnasium space. The footprint of the building already lends itself well for our pickup and drop off. There's a surface lot right in front of the main entrance to the building between the parking structure and the building, and it has a natural loop for pickup and drop off. And again, as we grow, we'll probably stagger these arrival and pickup times to keep that traffic light. We do not bus any scholars to our facility now and don't anticipate doing that, so there will not be school buses coming in and out of the facility. And we also encourage public transportation, and we'll be adding adequate bike racks so people biking to the facility can bike. There's two main entrances into the campus. There's the one on WPS Drive and then also on Bridge Road. We're working with WPS as we go through the final stages of the agreement to make sure that we have shared access to the roads and that we have an understanding together for how to maintenance and service the roads. We anticipate using both of those entrances into the facility. And again, for signage, we're working right now to put together a plan for you all. What we would like to put up within the city plan already. Obviously, we have an interest in promoting our schools and letting people know our brand and that we're there at the facility. And we look forward to working with you to put up signage that's in keeping with the city's plan. And with that, I'll stop. I know I would like to let our school developer, Ms. Davis, jump on and let you know what we'll be doing in the schools to give you a little bit more context.
And just for reference, just in case the Plan Commission members who don't know, this is the Norby building on the WPS campus. That's the one on the east side. It includes parking structure visible from the Beltline, which is what's being referenced. I believe the information is it's currently a 700 space parking structure. So they're looking at the top deck as a possible exterior remodeling to include that gymnasium or outdoor play space. But the initial phase would only be interior modification outside of signage on the outside and possibly some, as you referenced, play spaces for the scholars. And also it's currently in the community design district within the city. And I understand that you've got the forest there, which is an important part of the city's plan. And One City's use would retain that, certainly that use, and benefit from it, and use that in education as well. So
Thanks, Jared. Yep, that's accurate.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm able to get screen sharing rights, but if not, I can just sort of talk it through.
Yes, I'll make you a co-host.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'll just sort of quickly go over what we're really looking at preparing here. One City Preparatory Academy, we're looking to start with 6th through 12th next August of 22. Like David was saying, we're adding 3rd and 4th grade this August. So actually 6th through 10th the next year, and then we'll expand to 11th and then 12th in August of 24. And the mission of One City really is to ensure that all children are on track to succeed in a college or career preparatory program, which is why we're very excited about partnering with Madison College and creating our own early college model to really fulfill the mission of One City Schools. And this graph is just showing the support of our current One City parents for this growth into a secondary school model. And here's what I really wanted to focus on showing you. We start with age 2 in our One City preschool and daycare, and that it's really a foundation, child-directed learning with a lot of room for reflection and play. And from there, our One City scholars move to our One City Elementary School, where we use the expeditionary learning curriculum. It's a very project-based curriculum with interdisciplinary units. To just continue building some independence in learning, some autonomy with learning that will expand up through the middle school grades, where we'll really start exploring careers and get students hands-on learning with projects based on some career exploration. That depth of learning will increase as the students age and their brain allows for more expansive experiences and abstract reasoning. Job shadowing experiences, internship experiences with some of our community partners, hopefully many of them in Winona. And then in grades 10 through 12, the students will really dive really deeply into the classes, associate's degree classes, and liberal arts transfer classes through Madison College and through some that we'll be providing on our own campus. Actually going to go right here just to show you some of the early college pathways we're considering. One, we're really trying to create an increased pipeline for educators. There's a national shortage of teachers in general, especially teachers of color, and we really want to change that. And so one thing that we're looking at is providing an opportunity for our scholars both to get an associate's in early childhood education, but also to add a 5th year of our high school to allow our students to go through a liberal arts transfer program and onto their bachelor's by the time they graduate from high school in 5 years, so that our scholars can go right into the teaching profession. We also, this building, we're really excited about the Culinary Arts, bringing that into our building. We have a chef already as part of one of our unique features of One City Schools is that we really focus on healthy meals and wellness. And so we do have a chef who provides breakfast and lunch and snack for our scholars already. And the kitchen facilities in this building are exemplary. So we're really excited about bringing that program in and graduating scholars with their associates in culinary arts, looking at hospitality, business, construction, engineering, and a straight liberal arts transfer to allow our scholars to go on to a 4-year institution and major in whatever they're interested in majoring in. So we really are excited about the graduates that we're looking to graduate. we're focusing on creating new leaders for Madison and for the world beyond Madison. We want role models and mentors. We want them to be able to tackle new issues that none of us can even imagine right now, and have a strong sense of who they are as people, as learners, and as community members. And we want them to be able to communicate effectively and be completely ready for college and career. So I just wanted to give you just the sense of really what we're trying to create here. We're really excited about this building. We're really excited about partnering with all of you in Winona. We're just excited about all the possibilities that we have here. So I feel like it's part of some really great positive momentum, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you talking about it.
I just wanted to add that two things. One is that this will be Wisconsin's first true early college secondary school in our state. And we use the word secondary because it includes 6th through 12th grade. And there's no other school like this. It's also the only longer school year, longer school day public school in Wisconsin. As a public charter school, it's a public school. We take all kids just like anyone else. And these children are going to get up to 2 years of their education, college education or more, paid for by us using a combination of the per pupil dollars that we get at that grade level and also fundraising. And so we're trying to remove institutional barriers to young people succeeding. So what we've told people is our agenda really outside of our mission with this effort now is twofold. It's to ensure that we're moving children of color forward in ways that we haven't before, but also that we're ensuring that all of our children can live and lead equitably, so that we don't have a lot of the same problems that we see ourselves facing today. So we have a diverse student body. We have white students in our school. We welcome them, just like everyone else. People have asked us that, so I wanted to be explicit about that. Right now, 85% of our student body are students of color. And we like the diversity that we have. We'd like to see a little bit more of it. We'd like to see more Latino families in our school, and we're hopeful we're seeing more applying. Our staff is very diverse, and so we're really happy about that. And then, you know, the other thing is the two people that are on here, Farron DeBell is an award-winning principal, came to us from Chicago. He's leading our school right now, our elementary school. And Devin, who just spoke to you, just signed up to be our leader of our secondary school. And she's been developing this, her and Farron both. But she was the interim head of school at Madison Country Day. But she was the head of their middle school for, was it 8 years, Devin, or 9?
Yes, one of those. I think it was 9.
Okay, I think it was 9. So we have a very experienced team throughout. And so we're excited. And so we're really interested in seeing what we can do with the community in Winona. And I know Marilyn Ruffin, who was recently, she's coming off the school board in Sun Prairie. She's our vice president of community, or family and community initiative. She met with Andrew McKinney. And they've already set up a meeting with your superintendent that I'll be attending to talk about ways we can partner with each other. And he seems very open to that. So we're excited about being in the Winona community.
Great. Thank you, Devon. Thank you. David, with that, unless anyone else from your who wanted to speak, I would turn it over to the commission and give them an opportunity to weigh in. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, good. Terrific. So, Brian Holmquist, do you want to start this one off? Do you have any feedback?
Oh, sure thing. I think this is a wonderful plan. I'm excited to see One City develop and expand for lots of reasons. But when it comes to the issues related to our plan commission details, I just want to cover the pieces that Doug outlined around zoning and land use. I don't see any concerns. I think it's a great location. You have proven the ability to be in a location similar to this and execute it extremely well in your current locations. Circulation and site design, I think overall are going in a positive direction and will be just fine. I do have some of the concerns that I know were raised regarding, okay, we're talking younger kids. How do we look at the importance of play and outdoor space? I know the conceptual plan of using the top deck of the parking structure as one option. I'm just looking at more of the near future regarding some of the younger scholars that will be attending and how play will be incorporated into their day outside of the building. Other than that, I think this is a great concept. I think it's great use for the location. I think it's a great addition to our community as a whole. So I welcome it.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you, and apologies to Doug. You know, I'm an early riser, so I was up at 3 a.m. this morning, and it means that when you get into these long meetings, it's harder for me. So Doug, if you want to go ahead and touch base before I switch it back to the commissioners, that would be great.
Thank you. And I'll really just give a quick overview of my thinking here. And really, I had encouraged in discussions with One City from representatives from their team, just the desire to sort of get in the door early here and have these preliminary discussions. I recognized that site plans and things like that would not yet be finalized, but just to really have these higher level discussions, you know, the zoning and land use, the site design and circulation, and the exterior and interior improvements. I know in speaking with a couple folks that the signage is particularly important. So just things like, you know, possibly the existing WPS, as well as a potential new landscape ground sign facing the Beltline, for example, is one thing that's quite important. So just a few of those things that are bigger picture that maybe, you know, things that the commission chooses to discuss before getting to a level of granularity in the coming weeks and months. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Doug. Now back to the commissioners. Corrine, would you like to say anything?
Sure, yeah. This is very exciting. I love the concept, and, you know, to Brian's point, you know, it's hard not to talk about all the things that are really exciting about it that are unrelated to our stuff. So keeping it to the Plan Commission, I think it's a really creative reuse of the site. I think the location seems great, considering that you are looking to be accessible to the families that are currently going to your elementary school. It's very close, easy access on the Beltline once they open our ramps up again. You know, I did have a couple of questions, I guess, thinking about the outdoor play that Brian mentioned. Do you have plans to put in, if you can't do anything with the structure, are you going to be doing some additional play, like putting in a playground or doing something? There's that pavement area in the back by the woods, but I didn't know if that was going to be parking or if that would be like blacktop area.
Mm-hmm. We haven't, you know, to be honest with you, we haven't fully addressed that yet. I imagine probably some blacktop space, and we've also had just very brief discussions about the area just to the west of the parking structure, kind of closer to the Beltline, isn't a bit of an open grass area with a few trees that might lend itself well. But honestly, it's not even really worth talking about that yet because we haven't had really quality discussions about it yet.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest concern I have is related to the traffic and how the traffic will be handled in that location. You mentioned that it's similar to what WPS had, but WPS was a little bit of a different situation where the employees would come and they'd park their cars in that parking structure. And they would be there. This is, I just started taking my kids back to school, and I don't know if you have investigated drop off and pick up at other elementary schools in the area, but it's, you know, for the number of people that would be coming to your school without busing, it's hard for me to imagine how you would do that in the most efficient way possible. So, you know, starting small, you might not notice it too much in the beginning, but as time goes on, I guess that would be my biggest concern, is to think about the most efficient way to make sure that 600 cars are, you know, assuming that some carpool, but you have the employees coming as well. How do that many cars enter and leave that site in an efficient way within like over an hour time span? In addition to WPS when they bring their employees back to the office as well. And then there's been other discussions of development projects in that area that would also bring traffic. So I don't have an answer for that. You know, I was looking at the site. I'm glad to hear you're talking with WPS about using, having some shared usage and responsibility for those roads, because you mentioned using the 2 entrances, but I think you could also use, is it Gishold? Gishold?
Gishold.
Yeah.
And use that to Engel and, you know, the back way in and then out on Broadway. Like you could find a way to have flow, or vice versa. I'm not sure, but for me, that is the biggest concern that I have. Otherwise, I just think, you know, I could see you being stewards of that woodland as well. You know, I don't know that it's there, but I don't know how much of it has been cared for. So I could see that being a really project-based learning opportunity for your kids, and a way for us to keep that woodland, which is important to the city and is something that we've identified as a priority in our plans. Yeah, so I guess that, you know, talking to maybe IHM is located in a tight residential area that doesn't have busing either. So maybe that would be a place to talk to for how they handle their traffic and their pickup and drop off. Much smaller school, but might have some guidance to share on that. But yeah, otherwise I think it's great.
Good. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you.
Bob?
All right, thank you. This is exciting. This is huge. And I think there's a lot of good stuff and things to get excited about. I do have a list of questions. I'll try to keep them kind of going through quickly, but Mr. Klug, you had alluded to talking about the financials. Do you want to give like a quick recap of what you were speaking of, since they were public, you said?
I'll actually turn it over to Colleen, who can go through this and tell the story far better than I can. Colleen?
Okay.
Yeah, when you say financials, are you looking at operating or for facility or?
I was just talking about the facility purchase and the partnership.
Yeah, so Pleasant Roland has donated 14 million to us to purchase the facility. We're purchasing it for 12 million from WPS. She gave us the other 2 to help with renovation. That'll have to take place within the facility. Where we expect we're going to have to raise somewhere between another 6 to 8 million. But however, Joe Lee as the lead architect with, actually Rafik is doing the lead architectural work, but it's Joe Lee's firm. And then we have Findorf is also the construction manager on the project. They're working together to define exactly what the cost will be for us. I know we'll be looking at some drawings, some preliminary drawings tomorrow afternoon, but it'll be a little bit before we get the budget for the actual build out of the facility. But we're confident we're going to apply for some new market tax credits to help defray some of the costs of the project. And then, you know, we'll pursue other funding opportunities beyond that. So we're confident that we'll be able to do what's needed to make that work. The question mark for us will be a gymnasium. Like, how do we get that onto that footprint? You know, several of us want to put it on top of that parking deck, but both Joe and Findorf have said, let's look at how we do that, because it might not take the load, the weight. And I have an idea, you know, we could go meet with Elon Musk and create one that hovers over the parking lot. But we're trying to figure something out. Operating budget, WPS has kept impeccable records with how much it's cost to operate that facility, including at full capacity. And I see Annette Galbach on here, our broker. So we'll have a lot of information to go from to look at what it's going to take for us to sustain that facility operating budget wise. You know, we're developing our budget and long-term forecast now. Because we can grow considerably in that facility, it's going to allow us to secure additional resources, the per pupil, from the state to support it. And because we're achieving more economies of scale, like we staffed up early with a COO and Director of Community, or for VP of Community and Family Initiatives, things like that early, so we could build that model. We don't need to keep replacing those people. We don't double up on them. And so as we have more children in the school, it's going to give us more bandwidth to afford the general operating needs of the facility maintenance and upkeep, which is going to be about $500,000 a year to do that. So we're confident. We were confident before we decided to make the purchase as to whether or not we could make this go. And the way our model works is it really only works well if we don't have a mortgage to pay. And so in sharing that with our donors, that's how we're able to do what we do, because we don't have the long-term lease or mortgage on a facility. And instead we can focus just on the operations of the facility and long-term maintenance of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bounce around a little bit just because you touched on a couple things. You're talking about the gymnasium, and that's kind of a question mark. With looking into the future and the full build out, what are the expectations of sports offerings, team sports? Is that something you can address at this point?
Well, we can a little bit. I know we're going to talk to the superintendent. He might have some ideas about that too, but you know, we want a stellar program. Like there's nothing that we do or we don't want it to be excellent. And so we do, though, with our gymnasium, just as with our school building, we will make it available to the community to use. We do that now with the current, we don't do it with our lease facilities of COVID, but with our Fisher Street facility that we also own, which is our preschool. Before COVID, you know, when people needed to use it outside of school hours, we were very open to the community using it as long as folks took care of it. And so we'll put together a plan for community use for a gymnasium and the facility too. And part of that would be sports outside of our normal athletic activities of the school. It would also include community activities. And you should also know that our program for sports is co-curricular. It's not extracurricular. So it's actually literally a part of our school program. So our young people have to participate in these activities. Right now we have academies, like they've gone, the little kids have done ice hockey, you know, they're skating, they've done, you know, basketball outside and soccer and things like that to explore it. But as they get older, they're gonna have to pick a sport that they want to play, but also like a debate club and some other things, and they'll be graded on their participation. So very similar to more of an independent secondary school model than a traditional public school model.
Great. Going back to kind of that full build out numbers, it seems like you're very much setting the goals of maximum capacity of based on the existing building. Looking at the building max at, you know, 1061, I think it was, you're at 988 projected use. I guess my question is the goal beyond 2024, 25 to remain at 988, or is there potential for expansion, building additions, more classroom space?
No, we're going to try to nail that in the renovation that we're doing now. We won't grow more than that. If we did it, maybe just a couple kids, because for us, if we grow beyond that, it's going to be another location. It's not going to be there, and it would probably be a different model too. You know, I've told people, not going too far ahead, like we're trying to do the things that the community doesn't have yet. So like a performing visual arts school, something like that, you know, things that we could create a little niche for, probably closer to downtown where the Overture Center is. So those are the kind of things that we would explore doing. But right now, we're just focused on building this pipeline from preschool all the way to 12. So it'll be a while before we can entertain anything like that. But we will stay in this building. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't know many charter schools around the country that have a building like this. We don't want to give this up.
Thank you again, and I'll keep going here. Kareen touched on circulation. That's going to be a big thing. Managing traffic. One thing I keep going back to is that this area, this building was planned for those types of numbers. The circumstance in which brings those people in and out are a little bit different. But that's something that we're going to want to look at, and it's going to work really well. Another thing to talk on is site security. And I'm not an expert in schools, but is there like, would this property be fenced off? Would it be, or is this too much detail at this point?
Might be a little bit too much detail at this point. Certainly we'll look into all the things we can do to make sure that the students on site are safe. If they're playing outside, that it's, you know, adequate fencing so that nobody can wander off onto, you know, an adjacent street, or God forbid the belt line or something like that. So we'll take all that into account as we plan the site. And certainly for, you know, we're working right now with WPS to figure out what they're doing for security. It's already a very secure facility by the nature of what they do. So there's a lot of things already in place internally that we can then assume from them and make sure that we're operating in a very secure facility.
And we do, our board chair is Noble Ray, the former police chief from Madison. And when Rafiq and Joe Lee were designing the initial building before COVID that we were looking at building on Badger Road in Madison, he had walked through the project with them to make sure that all the security points within the school, from like a active shooter, just things like that, the kids would be safe within the building. I just met with someone, I haven't told Joe and them this, Alex Compton. He's probably one of the, next to Reese Gaines, probably one of the most prominent basketball players ever come out of Madison. But he leads a company now. One of the things they do is install glass, the sheet over glass. They're putting it in schools all around the country where, you know, if somebody was standing outside and shoot, it would ricochet off the windows, things like that. So we're going to, from an internal, external perspective, we'll make sure that the building is secure and keep you guys informed on what that will look like.
All right, thank you. Just a couple things. I'll just more points. You don't have to comment necessarily at this point, but I love the idea of the prairie and kind of being stewards, like Kareen had mentioned. You have a big asset with those woods there, ecologically and educationally. I think that's great. I think I read something about some Anji play. I don't know if that's planned for exterior improvements. It's innovative stuff. It's great. Yeah, I'll turn it over for now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Christy?
All right, thanks. Yeah, I mean, this is just, it seems this site was designed for you. And I'm so excited that you're coming here. It just is an excellent use for a kind of an odd lot. So yeah, I think the surrounding development is just going to benefit greatly from the return vehicular traffic and the foot traffic. And I'm excited to see the tax base that follows this and how it catalyzes the corridor. I think those are going to be really big positives for Winona. I was wondering if you have envisioned how the traffic flow will come in. Would it, and maybe that's too far down the road, but are you envisioning it coming in on WPS Boulevard and exiting on Bridge, or vice versa?
I think you're probably a step ahead of where we are right now. But ultimately, you know, our goal is to map out a plan and create the necessary signage for everybody to follow that is the smoothest flow of traffic that we can possibly come up with for the site.
Well, it's nice because you have multiple options there. As someone said, you have Bridge, you have Angle, and you have WPS Boulevard. So certainly doable. I agree that the forest access is just so unique for an urban setting and just really wonderful for you. I think that's just a huge bonus. You know, and so someone had mentioned the development that we're reviewing currently at the Winona Garden site, and having that's going to looking at a car share program and being live work units. And I was just thinking about the synergy. It could potentially even be housing for your teachers or your maintenance staff. And that, I think there's some great synergy there. And I think the timing is really good because we're talking about possibly looking at some on-street parking around that building. And so, you know, now we can consider how that would impact you as well in those discussions. Someone reached out to me, actually, it was a team of landscape architects is seeking learning opportunities. And so if that's something that you need in-kind support, I would be happy to pass along that referral. You know, they're looking for somewhere that, you know, maybe they could showcase the potential of the site and use this as a learning opportunity there. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. There's another one. This one's a little bit out of the park, but someone else has contacted me just yesterday that is looking for an urban sports park site. So if you find that the integrity of the parking ramp is not solid enough for the gymnasium, if there might be something different that you might be interested in, I know there's a crew that is they're looking for a site for something really different in that regard. So I think everything else has been mentioned. I'm really excited about the timing of this. I think it seems really clandestine, and excited to watch your vision blossom here.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Chris?
Thank you. First, I want to say this is an impressive team you have here. I don't recall ever having a team quite this impressive, is where I'm going to use, all come to Plan Commission at one time. It's incredible. You've assembled quite a group. I think our number one overriding reason Doug probably had you come here is do we find this an appropriate use for that property? And I think you've heard that it sounds like, yes, we do. I thought about our own public high school is actually adjacent to some CDD zoning. So you know, we've already had that precedence in Winona. A lot of schools are in residential districts, but our high school happens to be in a commercial area with residential around the other side. I think the people that you affect the most are the people that you're buying the building from. So clearly they're on board. So I think that's terrific. And I think that's, I would say, the big issue thing we need to look at is an appropriate use. We are, however, Plan Commission. So you've heard lots of detail. That's what we love to get, is the details. And I know you're not ready for that, but I think it's a good opportunity to talk about all these. You've heard traffic many times. Luckily, you're buying it from a firm that was very thoughtful and very professional when they designed their site. They took into account a lot of traffic considerations. They just rerouted all their roads. I can't remember now, must be 10 years ago or so, and added the stoplight on Broadway. So there's a lot of capacity there. I would say the biggest issue I probably see with traffic might be your queuing links. And I think that's where it's critical. You talked about staggering all your start times. And I think to be able to provide adequate queuing to have people dropping off and picking up kids, which a lot of times they're just not ready when you're there. You have a reason you have to sit there. So I think a big thing for you to look at is your queuing links and where that'll go. The gymnasium, although I admire your wish to build it on the parking ramp, I think you're going to struggle with that. I think one of your team members, well, I see another team member just smiling about that too. And I don't know JLA as well, but I do know Findorf has a lot of experience on ramps, especially trying to fix up precast ramps. I went in there, it's a precast ramp. They are not noted for their capacity. And I see a smile on your architect's face. In fact, they're noted for not having a lot of capacity. You can't put a lot of weight on them. There's severe restrictions because of the cross members in there. There's a lot of grade on that ramp that you can't take out. So I think as much as it's a great idea, you might struggle. And looking at your site, I'm sure you've looked it all over, but it seems to me northeast of your building might be in good area. I don't know the layout of the building, but it might be a good spot where you could attach a gymnasium if that's what you're looking for. It seems to me, I'll back up one step, 800 student school usually sits on a lot more property than this. So you will be creative in how you're going to make this work, I'm sure, but obviously you need gymnasium space. And I don't know about sports fields. I predict, as nice as some of that woods is, it's not that nice. You're going to take some of it out to be able to eventually hit all your needs. I think you're going to have to capture some of that. I think some of that property, I don't know, but I believe it was mapped years ago, and I believe some of it's in wetland. So it's not all available, and the stuff that's in wetland is still available, but it's not available to develop. So I think you'll, as you do some of your investigation, figure out where you have buildable land and where you don't. I think a lot of that years and years and years ago was a dump site for Gisholt Foundry, and you probably find some foundry sand and a few things like that in there. So those might be areas you don't want to disturb. But I think you have possibilities, but we're going to look forward to, we're details, right? So we're going to look forward to some of your details on how you're going to do this. When we talk about traffic, one thing that hits me really is when you're going to have all these kids here, and you said a lot of them will come by bike or walking, is you may want to look at not just your site. Again, WPS did a great job with sidewalks and such, but you may have to look a little bit off-site. That intersection with Broadway and Bridge is a major intersection, and where is your safe route to get these students to school? I think that's really important, to look beyond just your property lines and see how is this going to work, and how can we make a good way to get them in. Like I say, WPS has planned well, but this was never planned for this type of foot traffic or bike traffic. I think it's great, but I think we need to look at it. May need to work in concert with both Madison and Winona on taking a look at some of those areas. Access easements, I don't see that as an issue, because when we approved the certified survey map for WPS, one of the things we talked about was access easement agreements, which I know you've said you're working out with them right now. And I think WPS wants access to Angle just as much as you need access to the stoplight that was put in at WPS Drive. And I think that's an excellent area, and it's got great queuing there for your students to get in and out. You're not going to like this next one. I know you're not going to like it. And a lot of you have been listening to this meeting all night. You know that signs are just the devil. They really are the devil. The details of signs are just, they're hard. We made a special exception for WPS to allow a second monument sign, and it was made based on the scope of their property and how much land they owned. And we crafted around the fact that nobody else will ever have that big a piece of property. And that's the only reason they have two monument signs. And in our signage code, now you say they'd like to keep the one that's out now on your property. Well, our signage code doesn't even allow off-site signage. So that's an issue to begin with. But to put another monument sign there would be monumentally difficult to craft an exception for that. And I drove down the Beltline and on your site, and we've never done it before, but we don't have many parking structures in Winona either. And it seems to me there might be some way to utilize that for an exception for some signage, and you could get outstanding signage on the Beltline without trying to get a second exception for monument signs. We not only gave an exception for two, we gave exceptions for larger, because as you can see, if you listen to our discussions before, we'll all, well, actually, that's not true there. That you probably, Doug, they'd probably be in the pylon district there. It doesn't matter. There are too many signs on the property as it is. And your building also has great visibility. So signs are going to be a little more difficult, and we need to look at some creative solutions. I understand it's important for you. I understand you need to let people know where you're at. And I understand there's whatever 100,000 vehicles a day going down the Beltline. That's a great opportunity for letting people know about you. But I'd like to hear back from the rest of the commission, but I'm really thinking that a greater opportunity might be your parking structure.
You mean put a sign on the parking structure?
It's a possibility. We don't have any other parking structures I'm aware of in Winona, so it might be easier to craft an exception for that. And that parking structure, I know you've driven by it. It is right there, right on the Beltline.
Yeah, it's right up against.
Oh yeah, I mean that's closer than and more visible than anything.
Yeah, just so you know, we don't mind that WPS's sign is still there.
Oh, I understand. What I'm trying to bring out is we have sign ordinance and we can't just keep flying in the face of it because everybody's going to want, well, they have 3 pylon signs. We ought to have at least 2, or not pylon, sorry, monument. I misspoke. I think the gymnasium space is important. And I think some active area will be important where I'll be anxious to see what you propose. I do believe you'll get into that woods a little bit, and that's okay. The upland areas of that while still maintaining the integrity of a lot of other stuff. It's not like it was a 200-year-old oak forest. It's what grew up, most of it grew up wild after Gisholt got done using that as a dump site. So the integrity, there's some nice trees there. There's some trees that, they're just, I don't want to call it tree junk. We love all trees, right? We're Plan Commission. But they're maybe not as high a value as some other ones. I echo what everyone else said. I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting that you bring such a professional team to do this. And I really look forward to working with you on this.
Can I ask you guys one question just to think about it? Because we haven't even, we're floating ideas about how to do this gymnasium, but we also know that the building will be coming off the tax rolls per se, although we will still talk to you guys about how we can address that, because we don't want to take all the tax revenue from the city. So we're open to that too. But what about a gymnasium where there could be some shared revenue? In a gymnasium, there is no indoor soccer field in Wisconsin that is regulation size soccer field for adults. There's not one. That site is large enough, that parking deck. So again, I don't know, I'm not an architect, not Findorf, but what we do at One City, it's really called One City. We really want to benefit the community that we're in. And the building itself, the community to be able to use it for meetings, activities, events. We have a huge kitchen. But for a gym, to bring more revenue in to the city of Winona, just something to think about. Is there a possibility? And, just what would your all's general reactions be to give us some parameters to head down? Where is it just our gymnasium that we allow the community to use, or is there another opportunity to do something more?
Well, since I'm still unmuted, that's not a Plan Commission thing. That's a deal you need to talk with the alders and the mayor. We have 2 alders, our chair, and then also Christy. They're both alders, and a decision like that would have to go through certainly the city council and possibly the CDA. We're a little different than Madison in that your application comes to us and it doesn't go on further generally to the city council or somewhere else. So the final approval is done at the Plan Commission, but something that involves finances, money, or that would have to go to the city council. I think whoever you're talking with in the city would be the appropriate conduit for that.
Great. Thank you. Anything else, Chris?
Oh,
Anything else from the commissioners? Sorry, Brian?
I would just, I would add in, what Cream was commenting at the end there, I think is highly important for the city council to consider and other departments around, like, how do we look at shared use and the importance of embracing a larger community effort around recreation as well as a variety of other topics. This is just a key way that we can start that discussion in a very practical way.
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I was just going to say, Colleen, after you have your meetings, or since you've just already started your meetings with the school district, certainly feel free to begin to loop in the city staff as well, beyond this Plan Commission, because as Chris pointed out, we have a singular mission here on the Plan Commission, but those conversations with the City Council and the rest of the alders and city staff around shared use, we'd absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
And beyond that, all I kept thinking as you all were talking about athletic space was, or outdoor space was, Ken Rosa being on the call and thinking, okay, like in the middle of the night, somebody's going to go out and lay out some chalk lines in a ball field on the great lawn of WBS or something. Am I right, Ken? No, it's that's the only great lawn we have here in Winona is their big patch of green. So anything else tonight, commissioners, as it relates to this pre-hearing? Ken, now that you've turned your camera on, did you want to say anything? Can't hear you. You're muted somehow.
Yeah, you're right. I was muted. I just want to say that we're excited for One City Schools, and we've been working closely with them to develop all of the things necessary, including the easements and the things that are going to make them successful, and it will make us successful as well. So it's a good fit for our campus.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, with that, I think.
If I may.
Yes.
I do apologize. I know it's 9:30 at night and it's been a long meeting already, but just wanted to touch base on the timing right now for One City Schools. We're currently still in negotiations with WPS, but expect to have a purchase agreement shortly. We've already had a letter of intent signed between the two entities and are moving forward rapidly on this. One City is looking to have this facility operational and ready for the 2021 school year. And to do that, we're aiming for a closing date of, I think it's July 30th of this year. So we are planning on moving relatively quickly, which is one of the reasons why Doug recommended that we get in before the Plan Commission, before we had a lot of these, really specific details down yet, so we could plan what next steps are necessary. And I also understand that Doug might be out. Congratulations to him and his wife at the end of the month here. So we want to make sure that when we come before probably another pre-hearing, we have as much ready for you as possible. What I'm hearing and looking at is certainly, it sounds like a traffic circulation plan is something you'd be looking at, wanting us to have in place, definitely for the application. But what other documents would be useful? Is that something we should work with Doug on? What permits are we looking at applying for? I do apologize, I've read the zoning code, but I haven't helped with any developments in Winona before. So would be just looking at what would be useful from us for the next pre-hearing, so we can get more of these questions answered for you and have a little more detail.
Well, first of all, I would say that a lot of the number of things that we talked about in terms of outdoor space and the gymnasium and that sort of thing, I'm assuming would not be things that you would be looking to be, you're going to be moving ahead with this facility without having every I dotted and T crossed in terms of your longer term, larger plan, correct? So, I mean, you're going to be opening with a smaller number of people in the facility that's already there. And so my point is that I think Jared, have pretty much hit the nail on the head, and I'll have Doug or other commissioners jump in, but from my point of view, it definitely things like traffic flow and signage, assuming that you want to be identified, from the day that you open your doors, if not before, were some of the more critical things I think that we would want to, and your most critical things in terms of getting the doors open for a smaller number of people. And we can move quickly, as a commission too. But Doug, beyond those, we've pretty much spoken to the fact that we feel like the zoning is not an issue because we've done it with our high school. We've done it, ourselves. But Doug, what do you?
I would agree. I think that the next steps, I think tonight the main discussions focused on the land use and sort of preliminary feedback. Sounds like the CDD and the land use, the commission is comfortable with that. So that element is fairly well addressed. I think the next point is going to be circulation, vehicular circulation, but also pedestrian bike as well. And I think it's really going to evolve into the site plans and sort of the preliminary designs that you guys have. That I think once those are fleshed out a little bit more, I think that would be a appropriate time to come back. Once a lot of those detailed questions that were coming up tonight, maybe just an idea here, but maybe one more pre-hearing before a possible action seems to be a good spacing here for meetings. So, come back with the plans, with greater idea of how the layout may be, as well as having thought about the traffic, and then probably from there move to the consideration and possible action.
Chris, you want to add to that? Yeah.
Well, if I could, if I were the applicant, I wouldn't want to just get a permit for 200 students. I'd want to come in here and have my permit in hand for my ultimate build out. So I think they do need, or they should, if I were the applicant, I would address what am I doing for traffic? What am I doing for queuing? Because I'd want the permit to be able to have that school up to 800 students or whatever that number is they're looking for. And if they want that permit, then they should address the needs for that many students. Now, you're right, if they're going to add a gymnasium later or a ball field later, that's something we would look at later. But I think the base premise of a school for 800 students should be addressed at this. I mean, they don't have to, but I sure would. I wouldn't go in there and find out later I can't put 300 more students in that building because I've got a problem.
Right. Anybody else? Any other commissioners? Have anything to add? Chris?
Sorry. With me, there's always one more thing. We're a lot easier to get through. I know you asked that question. You've worked in a lot of different municipalities. We're a lot easier to get through since you only go through plan commission. When I say only, maybe not, because depending on what you look at off-site, you may have to go through public works. They may want to take a look at what you're proposing for bike ped connections or something. We may want some input, but basically it comes back here for final approvals. So you don't go through UDC or a lot of different commissions that you're used to going through in a lot of different communities. Doug can speak to it. We require the materials at least 2 weeks before a meeting. We meet twice a month, not once a month. For a project this big, I would suspect he might want them a little more than that because we will have some outside reviews for engineering reviews and a few things like that. But as I mentioned before, you're very fortunate. This is a well thought out campus and almost everything you're doing right now is already built and functioning. So there's not a lot of site design involved in this. It's just some of the ideas that were talked about tonight. But were I the applicant, I would certainly address it for the full build out. And then you can always come back for gyms or ball fields.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else from the commissioners? Well, Sue, did somebody just speak up? No?
I did, but I was just agreeing with Chris that, I don't want them to go in it with this idea of, a small group and then have the consideration not be encompassing their whole vision. So I would want them to do the whole vision versus just a smaller group.
Right. Yeah, and just to clarify, I was referencing, I wasn't referencing the flow as not needing to think about 800 people, but more things like the gymnasium and the outdoor space. So with that, I want to add my kudos as well as the chair of this commission, as well as an alder here in the city, that we're really excited to have you here, really excited what you're doing, and grateful that you found the building and that you found us, and we look forward to collaborating with you as a municipality in ways that are constructive. And we thank you for coming, all of you coming tonight, especially given how late it is this evening and hanging through such a late meeting tonight. We look forward to seeing you again real soon. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay. Do you believe that takes us to, how are we doing, Rob? Are we at 3 hours yet?
I'm gonna win. I get 10 on either side, right?
Yes.
That takes us to number 7, reports of staff and commission members.
Thank you. So we do have a couple things. Obviously, the Restaurant Depot application will come back through. We also have a possibility of this, if the One City application, depending upon when they resubmit. I'm expecting at least one possible pre-hearing for an item on Winona Drive. It's a possible redevelopment there, so that one is still yet to submit, but hopefully can share some more details soon. And just from an economic development standpoint, the city administrator and I did meet with someone looking at a different project, again on Winona Drive. Again, it's too early to share much more detail, but hoping that would be coming for a pre-hearing still in the spring here. So within the next few meetings, hoping we can share a little bit more detail on that. So again, still things in the works, plenty more things to be coming through, but hoping to share some more detail soon on that.
Great.
And so I am expecting we'll have a few things on the agenda for that May 10th meeting. We'll be trying to roll together the April 26th meeting to that. And we'll have both Elisa and City Administrator Gatto working on that. So we'll be in very capable hands.
Okay. So I want to thank everybody. Does anybody have any other questions for Doug? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Corey.
Which is just, I drove by Rutabaga.
Yes.
It says the business is relocating.
No, well, all right. So I'll give you the short version since I've been affiliated with Rutabaga for 20 years. Darren jumped the gun a little bit in terms of thinking that he had development plans completed or not completed, but that he had a spot that he was landing. And the owner of the building has sold it and made arrangements with the new owners that Darren can stay there through I believe June 1 of 2022. So Darren is going to be looking for a new home. Unfortunately, he advertised on Facebook where he thought he was going, including putting the coordinates, and there wasn't any deal. So he's, but we're good, I've already informed Ryan, City Administrator Gatto about it, and I've been in communication with Darren, as I said, and we're hoping that we can find something for him in Winona. In the meantime, he's trying to get the word out to his folks that Rutabaga is not going out of business, and that he's just looking for a new, slightly larger home. So
okay,
yeah,
thanks. Yeah, that's good to hear that.
Yeah. Yep. So he's good. I mean, it was terrific in that they were able to identify a new owner that was willing to work in terms of the closing date and build out and all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm confident that we'll be able to, that Rutabaga will land on its feet and everybody will end up happy campers. But it's kind of a shock to everybody. Anything else?
This is Chris. I have to apologize. My internet went out, so I just called in by phone. I assume we're still in Plan Commission requests for information?
Yes.
Okay, because I missed whatever was going on. So I had two quick things. My brother and I were talking the other day. We have a lot of properties in Winona that are, I'd say, workforce housing. They're small homes on small lots, and we're always struggling. We're always trying to convince people that we want them to stay here, and as they grow a family, to be able to add on. And we always run into our issue with setbacks. And I know in Winona, our ordinance still is a 30-foot front yard and a 40-foot rear yard. And virtually every community we work in is a 25-foot front yard and a 30-foot rear yard. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the city should at some point explore our setbacks and see if that's an issue for a lot of our homeowners that would help them or not.
I could definitely do some research into that and look into maybe it's a sort of bifurcation of single family with less than a certain number of square footage being one setback, and just thinking out loud. But can certainly look into to other area communities and similar, maybe across the state too.
Sure, because most of the ones we work with, they go 25 and 30, and it's a lot more here. And I just thought it might be. We just thought it might be something that would be helpful for people. And the other thing I wanted to mention was I think tonight was a great example of why we need to make sure we have printed materials ahead of time. I think for most commission members, it was really difficult on your phone in places trying to get a feel of that signage plan by the Restaurant Depot. And I would say, as in the past, if they can't get written materials to us in time for you to give them to the commission, then they should wait till the next meeting.
Absolutely. That one in particular was a very tricky application. Given the canceled April meeting, I was trying to be flexible, but it ran to the wire there. So I will be much more willing to push it next time, certainly.
Yeah, I think tonight was a great example. I think a lot of the commissioners were a little uncertain on some of the things. It's just hard on a phone. It's hard to have a meeting on your computer and be trying to stare at your phone. And it's not on us, Doug. It's on them to get their materials in on time.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I would just, I would also say, I thought tonight was also another good example too of how hard it is when we have an exciting application like One City Schools in front of us to stick to our mission. Which is to say, that as a commission, it would have been very easy to veer off beyond saying, looks like a great project, to veer off into all kinds of other directions that really are not part of our charge. And, I think for the most part, we did that. And I appreciate people being attentive to that, that we don't go off of our charge as a plan commission, while at the same time being able to express enthusiasm for whatever applicant or be appropriately inquisitive about whatever application is in front of us. But I thank you for that. Anything else before we go for an adjournment?
Do we need to delay for 2 minutes so Rob can win?
Oh, really?
We can.
Well, yes, I'll chime in with that question then.
I can actually do that really easily because, Doug Plowman, the next time we see you, you're probably going to be a dad. So I'm sure other people have their own things to share, but let me just say that couldn't be happier for you. I hope everything goes. I trust everything will go well. And just wishing you much joy in birthing and in the time off with your first newborn.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, Chris is back on. Yeah.
I got it. I got internet back. So who
Yeah.
else is going to talk for another minute so that Rob can win?
We can just round up, can't we? Come on.
No, no rounding up.
I would say for a meeting like this tonight, you did a darn good job on your estimate. You won.
All right, good.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
So moved.
All of us.
Oh God, we're getting giddy. Did I get a second in there, or did I have two? What did I hear? A second?
Yeah, you got Rob and Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, you pick.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you all. Stay safe, everybody. Again, Doug, enjoy. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
best wishes.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.